Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. And yes, we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons adventuring gear. Is oil only useful for spreading fire or using as an accelerant or for lubricating? Essentially, oil is just a form of lubricant that also accelerates the burning process, right? Are there other uses we can put it to in our Dungeons and Dragons game? I believe there is. So what can you use your oil flask for in Dungeons and Dragons? Well, first off, we could just turn to page 152 of the Player's Handbook, and it's got a reasonable, 2 paragraphs of information on how you can use your oil flask, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with using it as it's written in the book. So you can throw it on a creature or an object and make it catch fire if, of course, you light the oil or apply some sort of fire effect to it and then cause damage to the creature or to the object, which is great. I am all for burning things. I like the idea of that being applied to the game in some way, which I know is a little bit odd, but anyway, it is a tried and true method. When in doubt, burn it, right? When in doubt, burn it. You can cover a 5-foot square area and make it light it up, which is always nice. You can also make it very, very slippery. So a flat surface will become slippery, and you may be able to treat that as being a hazardous area to move through, so difficult terrain possibly, maybe requiring a dexterity check to get through that location, which would all be fun. You can also light it up and actually cause it to create fire in a much more dangerous location, particularly if the oil sort of soaks into the ground or is sitting on top. Then you wind up with a flaming area which you can place in a tight, narrow location. And what is that going to do? Well, it's going to cause a blockage, which means you can now escape, or you can sort of funnel all of your creatures through that location so they have to fight in the flames while you're on the other side of the flames. A terrible strategy, I know, a terrible strategy. Oil is actually really useful on any surface that is a slope. So if you've got a slopey area, stick the oil down there. That will be helpful to you in some way, I'm sure. Okay, you can burn a building, a door, a wall. You can burn up webs, throw the oil on there, apply some flame or a light it up, and she burns. And useful if you want to get through something that you can't actually break down or pick, or you just want to slowly smolder. I know that oil and fire and lots of green foliage is usually used to help create a fire in front of a cave so you can smoke out your monsters. Let's smoke out the monsters. What about if I get captured and somebody decides to get funky and put some manacles, cuff me, or tie me up with ropes, bound my arms and my legs? If I can get to my oil flask in my pack, which may or may not be possible, you can use it, you can pour it over manacles or rope to free somebody from their bonds. So if you don't actually have the key for a set of locks, you can now slide your hands hopefully through there, or your foot through there, by using a lubricant of some kind. And that's what your oil flask is all for, right? That's what your oil flask is for. If you're the sort of person who likes to, when they've been adventuring, they kill a monster and then they decide they want to eat it, well, you can use your oil, provided it's food hygienic, that is. You can use it for cooking. You can cook up your monster. You can cook up your whatever it is you want to cook up. I'm not going to make any kind of personal judgment on your part in terms of what you decide to cook at your Dungeons and Dragons campsite. It's totally up to you. You can use it for refilling your lantern, because your lantern's going to need oil at some point, right? You can use it to lubricate or oil up that old machine or the gears or some sort of device that needs to move and it sort of got stuck. Maybe it's got jammed, there's things stuck in there and it's got a bit rusty, or it just doesn't have any kind of lubricant left in there because it's all dried away, so you can clean away all the caked stuff and then lube it all up. You can also lubricate jammed or stuck doors. A lock, if a lock is getting jammed or stuck, you lubricate that. Maybe a window that's got jammed, a hatch, or a lid to a treasure chest, or any kind of lid really. So lots of different applications for the use of oil. all of which are not really outside of the norm in terms of what we use oil for in the first place, right? Okay, so you're the sort of person who likes the pit fight, and you decide you will challenge somebody to a wrestling match, and this guy shows up. This is a good time to get out that oil, oil yourself down, and that'll make you much harder to grab hold of, because you do not want him to grab hold of you in a wrestling match, because once that happens, it's all over Grover. So no getting grabbed. Make sure to oil up when you're going for that wrestling match or any kind of combat that requires fisticuffs of some kind, right? Fisticuffs. If you're an adventurer, all of that strain and stress on your body will take its toll, and there's these times where you might get the opportunity to have a massage. And of course, what do you want? You don't want a dry massage, you want an oily massage, right? You want the oil. So you use the oil for that particular process. Oil it up, and then loosen up all those muscles. Great stuff, great stuff. What about if you want a fast burning fuse? You can use a piece of rope and then cover that with oil, light one end, and of course it's attached to the other end which has got the explosive or whatever, and that will go kaboomy, and you have time to run away. Of course, if you just use standard rope, it might go out, but if you oil up the rope, chances are it will not go out. In fact, it probably will spread fairly quickly, so make sure the rope is relatively long. Yes, definitely make it longer. You are out, it's been raining a lot, and you've been exploring, and it's getting cold and dark, and you want to create a campfire, but all of the wood is wet. What do? Well, you pile up your wood in a covered location, if you can find a covered location, and you put your oil flask, you put your oil on the wood, and then you can light it. Bam! All right. Now, I know this because I've done this many times myself when I have had lots of rainy weather here in New Zealand, which happens constantly, so I highly recommend that as an alternative if you need to. What about if you are exploring a dungeon and you can use that oil to deal with the squeaky, rusty door hinges so you can sneak through the dungeon without being heard? I don't know about being seen, but certainly without being heard, because of course every time you open one of those squeaky doors, there's going to be this noise going on, and you don't want that sort of thing. You want to be incognito. What happens when that torch won't light? Well, a little bit of oil on the torch and she's away. She's going to fire up nice. For those of you who are a little bit more like a pyromancer, then you can try and make yourself a homemade alchemist fire or some sort of boomy thing. Of course, a lot of people like to think that by applying something like caltrops and ball bearings and oil and some other thing that goes kapoomy boomy, they can make themselves something that goes bigger boomy boomy and creates a lot of other things flying everywhere, which just sounds terrible for anybody who's anywhere near it. But there are a reasonable number of decent uses for the flask of oil, which I hope you have found useful in some way. Now, I have hundreds of videos for players and dungeon masters, and in fact I have a series of videos that are developing on how to use your Dungeons & Dragons adventuring gear, which means there's more videos. I believe there is one on chalk, there's one on ball bearings, and there's one on where to stick that 10-foot pole, because you do need to know where to stick that 10-foot pole, right? Okay, now if you like this sort of thing, keep watching my videos. I have many more. You're welcome to go and check them out. But I have a Patreon page where you can see all of the live streams that go unlisted and additional material and priority on the videos that I make. I also have affiliate links to the book depository and Amazon down below. I have a merchandise shelf now. A merchandise shelf. It's all there. It's ready for you, waiting if you're interested. And make sure to share, like, and subscribe. Hit the bell button to be notified when I go live, and I go live a lot, and when I publish new videos, and that happens a lot as well. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.